On the evening of March 3, 1966, on Hollywood Boulevard, William Frawley suffered a heart attack that would eventually prove fatal. The part that brought Frawley the greatest fame was that of Fred Mertz, the spoiled brat from I Love Lucy. Dinner was being enjoyed by his old rival and former co-star Vivian Vance with her closest friends across town. She joyfully raised her glass, proclaimed, "Champagne for everyone," and raised it in a toast shortly after hearing the news. Those aware with the infamous animosity between the two would have been surprised by their reaction. What does their story reveal about the dynamics at work in the dynamic between one of the most famous television couples of all time, and what exactly was the cause of their extreme animosity? As soon as you hear about Lucy and Ricky Ricardo's famously hilarious antics, the song I Love Lucy probably pops into your head. Fred and Ethel Mertz were their greatest friends and landlords, and there's no denying the magic they had. William Frawley's portrayal of Fred and Vivian Vance's portrayal of Ethel were major factors in the show's success. They bickeringly argued and could make us laugh as much, if not more, than Lucy and Ricky could have on their own, like an old married couple. However, off-screen things were not quite as charming. William Frawley and Vivian Vance couldn't bear to be apart. If you want to know why, you have to start at the beginning, which was long before television became a popular medium. William Frawley is an excellent starting point. He had been in the business for a long time and was 64 years old when he made an appearance on I Love Lucy. Being born in 1887, he had already achieved a great deal by the time he passed away. Frawley got his start in the entertainment industry as a vaudeville artist, showcasing a variety of acts including song and dance, stand-up comedy, and more. He loved being on stage and had a gift for making people laugh. He began his Broadway career in the 1920s, appearing in big shows including Mary. He even dabbled with theater in the 1930s with 20th Century, proving he was more than just a funny guy. Hollywood contacted us not long after that. Frawley had a few cameos in silent films in 1916, but he didn't start seriously pursuing a career in the industry until the 1930, as a permanent role as a character actor became available to him after he did. He performed the part of Judge Harper's political advisor in the film Miracle in 34th Street, which you might remember. Performing the role, Frawley delivered his rough and tumble charm. Throughout his career, he has appeared in numerous cinema genres, including westerns, comedies, dramas, and musicals. No matter the role, he always managed to bring to life characters that were unflinching and honest, whether it was an insurance investigator in My Home in San Antonio or a baseball manager in Alibi Ike. However, by 1951, Hollywood was making fewer appearances. Frawley had been in over 100 films, but his roles weren't paying off. A rescuer materialized in the shape of I Love Lucy. Frawley eagerly seized the opportunity to portray Fred Mertz, the irate landlord, upon hearing that Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball were in the casting process for a new comedy. When he received the role offer, he was overjoyed. For someone she barely knew, he took a bold step by contacting Lucille Ball personally and asking her to perform the part. While Ball and Arnaz thought he was perfect, CBS wasn't quite as persuaded. The fact that Frawley was an alcoholic and generally unreliable was common known. Arnaz gave him a choice: stay on the job or face termination for every slip-up. The fact that Frawley persevered and achieved success is unbelievable. He quickly became one of the most reliable members of the ensemble, never showed up drunk, and taught himself his lines. Going on to the next subject, we have Vivian Vance, who would later play both his on-screen wife and his off-screen rival. Vance is 22 years Frawley's junior, having been born in 1909. When she first became famous, her path to stardom was different from Frawley's. She got her start in the Broadway industry in the 1930s, performing in chorus lines before moving on to supporting parts. Quote, one of her most formative experiences was performing as Ethel Merman's understudy in the Broadway musical of Anything Goes. The musical, let's face it, gave Vance the role she had been hoping for, and she eventually got it alongside Danny Kaye and Eve Arden. Her comedic timing and singing voice made her a natural for the musical theater industry. Vance moved to California in the late 1940s to try to make it big in Hollywood. She had little parts in films like The Secret Fury and The Blue Veil, but her acting career never really took off. Despite her reservations, she jumped at the chance to try out for the part of Lucy on I Love Lucy, even though she wasn't sure she wanted to play a dowdy landlord. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz recognized her acting chops. Vivian Vance's surprising metamorphosis into Ethel Mertz followed her successful audition. When they made an appearance on television, Fred and Ethel Mertz were the quintessential odd couple. In contrast to Fred, Ethel was passionate, kind, and had the perfect amount of snark to control Fred. Fred might be rude, short-tempered, and wasteful at times. They had an electric chemistry. Suddenly, they may be planning something fantastic, and the next thing you know, they're arguing. Many people looked up to them. It would be easy to assume that they were a middle-aged married couple who had been irritated with one another for decades. In contrast, things were different off-camera. The level of hostility between Frawley and Vance spiked immediately. The idea of being coupled with someone 22 years her senior was insulting to Vance. To begin with, she supposedly said he looked more like her dad than her husband. Frawley was not the kind to forgive easily, so he kept thinking about her remarks after overhearing them. After then, they maintained a chilly relationship at best. Frawley has a lot of gripes. He felt insulted by Vance's contempt for him since he thought she was egotistical. His comments about her were disparaging, and he called her that woman in private. On top of that, he said some nasty things about her. In contrast, Vance was quick to express her dislike for the circumstance. Because she was terrified of having to deal with that stubborn-headed little Irishman one-on-one, she reviewed the scripts to find out how often they appeared together. Professionally, Frawley and Vance were on par, notwithstanding their animosity toward one another. They made an impression, achieved their goals, and delivered performances that will live on in indelible memory. No one in the crowd had any grounds for suspicion. Their teasing and bickering seemed so genuine because, in many ways, it was. Ironically, one of the most popular TV couples on the show was formed by two people who, in real life, could hardly bear each other. The invitation to create a spin-off series by Desi Arnaz was a watershed event in their working relationship. We were to focus on Fred and Ethel now that Ricky and Lucy were out of the picture. He was completely oblivious to the tensions between Frawley and Vance since he only saw financial gain. However, Vance was not on board. She couldn't even begin to imagine the prospect of spending more time with Frawley, much less building a whole show around their chemistry. She was afraid the characters wouldn't work correctly without Lucy and Ricky, so she didn't want to take that chance. Her action exacerbated the gap between them and destroyed the idea. By the time I Love Lucy Season 4 ended, Vance and Frawley couldn't wait to part ways. Frawley played a grandfather-like figure in his subsequent comedy appearance, My Three Sons. Reappearing on The Lucy Show with Lucille Ball, Vance requested a clause in her contract guaranteeing that Frawley would never appear on the show. Their animosity was so strong that it had prevented them from ever being in the same room, no matter how much time had gone. Although Frawley and Vance had spent years collaborating to create one of the most beloved on-screen pairings in entertainment history, their antagonism only grew worse as time went on. Neither of them wanted to keep acting like they could tolerate the other after their enmity had reached a boiling point by the end of the second season of I Love Lucy. Frawley, who was infamously irritable and prone to holding grudges, carried his animosity toward Vance with him everywhere he went. Vance, meantime, was doing his best to keep the past in the forefront of his mind. Working on My Three Sons, Frawley was very forthright about how he felt about his ex-co-star. On one occasion, he was asked about Vance's genuine character while he was hosting a high-ranking military official. Without hesitation, Frawley uttered his now famous epithet, which included the derogatory term, miserable C. While this remark stunned onlookers, those familiar with his character knew better. Whenever it concerned Vance, Frawley's animosity knew no bounds, and he was not the sort to keep back his comments. The wrath, as one might expect, was not aimed at any particular target. When Frawley and Vance were first working together on the set of I Love Lucy, Frawley accidentally overheard Vance making snide comments about him. She called him "that old man" and doubted that anyone would ever accept them as a couple while they were together. No matter how much time passed, Frawley's initial anguish remained, and he never stopped seeking vengeance. He incessantly pushed for lines that mocked Ethel's looks, or suggested she was obnoxious and troublesome throughout the show. Frawley did it as an act of revenge. When it came to Vance's capacity to turn the tables on her, Frawley was severely underestimating her. Vance had a quick mind and a keen tongue. As soon as she stepped foot on set, she wasted no time getting right back to work. Her subtle jabs, such referring to Fred as "old fat Freddy," and her exaggeration of Ethel's annoyance with her husband gave the impression that she was acting. Behind the scenes, there was a power struggle, but the comedic payoff was well worth the investment. The feud continued long after the cameras stopped recording. In the wake of I Love Lucy's success, Desi Arnaz suggested a spin-off series starring Fred and Ethel, and Frawley was all for it. He would not allow his emotions for Vance to cloud his judgment in light of the potential for a steady salary, when Vance, in contrast, moved quickly to interrupt it. She made it clear she would never work with him again, saying she couldn't imagine making an entire series without Lucy and Ricky to keep things balanced. Contrarily, the truth was that she detested Frawley and would not subject herself to another year of negotiating with him. She made a decision that led to the spin-off being canceled before it ever started, and Frawley never forgave her for it. Even after all these time had gone since I Love Lucy came out, Frawley still held a grudge toward Vance. He wasted little time making light of her weight, disdaining her abilities to undermine her. More than that, it wasn't a case of petty insults. It was clear from Frawley's responses that he didn't feel any affection when questioned about her by fans or in interviews. There was a period when he supposedly declared that he would be completely content if he would never again have to see her name. On March 3, 1966, William Frawley went away, ending an illustrious career that had been filled with unforgettable performances and left an indelible impression on television. Tragically, he died of a heart attack while strolling down Hollywood Boulevard just days after celebrating his 79th birthday. People who knew him well were not entirely taken aback by the discovery. Frawley was notorious for his heavy drinking lifestyle and had a history of health difficulties due to it. Still, it's impossible to ignore the void that his passing has created in the entertainment world. Many of Frawley's colleagues acknowledged his contributions to the film and television industries. After casting him as Lucy in I Love Lucy, Desi Arnaz ran a full-page ad in trade publications. "Buenas noches, amigo." Considering that many in Hollywood thought Frawley was too unreliable to recruit, it was a proper send-off from someone who had dared to take a chance on him. At his funeral, pallbearers were Arnaz, Fred McMurray, and Don Fedderson, all of whom had worked with Frawley on My Three Sons, both as actors and producers. A number of people, including Lucille Ball, with whom Frawley had a rocky relationship, felt saddened by his death and remembered him as one of the greatest character actors of all time. What Frawley left behind for his fans goes beyond just recollections. A star was bestowed upon him on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in honor of his achievements in the film business. Many consider his portrayal of Fred Mertz to be among the most iconic supporting roles in television annals. At the Lucille Ball Desi Arnaz Center in Jamestown, New York, fans may still see artifacts from the I Love Lucy TV series, such as his frog outfit from the Hippity Hoppity episode. It is clear that Frawley's brilliance has made an indelible mark, even though he seems to have been a cranky and difficult person in real life.